to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. We'll go and get started. And I'm not sure if there's any modifications today. I haven't heard any. Have I?
We had one request to move the discussion of the Ghana trip till after 7:30, so could we move that to follow the 60-minute breakout on ELA?
Good. All right. Without objection, and yeah, I think we could kill time till after 7:30. Not an issue. It'd be great if we were done at 7:25, but that's okay. There's nothing else, nothing in the personnel that needs to be adjusted, amended, changed. I think we're good. That's rare. We are through the initial hiring processes and getting classes staffed with all our good people, so hopefully we're good for a little while. And so we're going to go ahead to the next item, which is receiving and hearing of delegations, meaning folks from the staff and community. And we do have a few signed up. And I think we're going to hear about Code Red Robotics again, because I hear Phoebe. Oh, there's Phoebe. Go ahead, Phoebe.
Hello, my name is Phoebe Catwell, and I'm the administrator on Code Red Robotics. First off, I would like to extend the thanks of Code Red for the continued support of the Board of Education. We have now had 4 meetings with new members. We have gained over 30 prospective new members this year, bringing our total number of students to just over 80. With this increased number of students, we are really working very hard and putting as much effort as possible into the fact that we're trying to give everybody the best experience possible. We are going to an off-season robotics competition in the end of October, and we are very excited to bring as many students as we can to that. Unfortunately, we have been unable to accept the interest of students in other schools around the district and around the Ithaca area, including New Roots and ACS, which we regret to have to do, but it is unfortunately necessary. We are extremely looking forward to this build season and are looking forward to many successes this year.
Thanks, Phoebe.
Where is the competition?
Right now we are signed up to go to one regional event in Rochester, and we are unsure where our second one is, but our off-season event is also in Rochester.
I didn't know Code Red had an off-season, so
you
learned everything. So thanks, Phoebe. And certainly board comments can follow. Janine?
Yes.
Oh,
hi.
Janine and Alice. Go right ahead.
Hi.
Fine Arts Boosters. We're always happy to hear from Fine Arts.
Okay, so if you look in front of you, there's a nice little orange piece of paper, and that is your golden ticket to all Ithaca City School District events, music, drama, choral, band, orchestra. You get to go free. Most of them are free already, but the musicals in place you do actually have to pay for, and the variety shows. So you have your free ticket, and it's like Charlie the Chocolate Factory. You can use it more than once. Yes, and we also wanted to say that we appreciate your support of ours.
So in order to find out where these events are, they're on the district website under the Fine Arts Booster Group website, and also the district Fine Arts calendar. It's all on the website. We update it regularly, so that's how you find out where and when they are. Oh, and we have a little reminder for our teachers. For anyone who wants to apply for a mini grant, the deadline is October 30th.
And you're welcome to apply.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Thanks, Alex. And well, the next person who signed it. Next person that signed up, please go ahead.
Soloway, the last name. Uh-oh, mispronounced that too.
This is where I bring the teacher in to decipher.
Mickey Mouse.
So if you signed up after...
Looks like Kira Soloway.
And...
Anybody else?
Yeah, that could be. So I'm not seeing anyone else who wishes to speak. I'm not seeing anyone. We'll move on. Student reps. we'll start with LACS.
Okay, so last Wednesday and Thursday was LACS's annual fall retreat. Where we all go up to Alnott Forest and spend 2 days getting to know nature and each other outside of the classroom. And it went pretty well for the most part. There was a slight issue with transportation because the buses got overbooked and some students had to go back to ACS early in order to make it all work out. But other than that, it went well, and I think it was a good community event. Other than that, the only thing is a monthly site-based council meeting is this Thursday. So we're hoping to have more attendance this time because not very many people attended the last one. That's it.
That's it. Very good. Ithaca High, go ahead.
At IHS, we just concluded the very first 5 weeks of school. Students will be receiving their first progress reports in the mail sometime this or next week. In regards to the baselines that occur in classes, we as board reps.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
In regards to the baselines that occur in our classrooms, as board reps, we've been told the purpose of these, but many students don't know why there are so many of them in various classes, such as gym. And if you could illustrate the purposes of those baseline tasks.
Thursday we had our state mandated early dismissal and we left class 15 minutes early at the end of 8th period. Open house was also Thursday, which I hear went over smoothly. Homecoming football game was Friday, and this week is Spirit Week at IHS. Today is Retro Day, tomorrow's Twin Day, and there's a barbecue for the senior class, which you should all attend. Thursday is 7 o'clock, 5 to 7, I think. Superhero Day is Thursday, and IHS Spirit, and the pep rally is Friday.
Sweet. We could do retro day. Sorry, go right ahead.
We were lucky enough a few weeks ago to have Svante Myrick, the mayor of Ithaca, come and speak to the government classes, which was a great opportunity. And we're also lucky enough to this Friday, Tom Reed, who will be our congressman should Nate Shinagawa lose in the general election, is coming to speak first period, and Nate is coming to speak second period. So it's specifically for government classes, but I shouldn't think they're going to keep anyone out. So it's going to be a great opportunity to learn more about who's running to be our next congressman. So the government teachers have done a really great job, and other teachers as well, of bringing in dynamic speakers to really, so that's always a great thing. We're very grateful to them.
Very good. Board responses, anything? Anyone?
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Kira.
I just wondered what baseline, what are you talking about? I don't know what that means.
Baseline
So I can have
time.
context. David? All right.
Well, apparently Dr. Brown will explain that to everyone that's listening at home and in your room that doesn't want to know what it's talking about. So you're going to address that.
I wasn't, but then I was talking to Kira. But thanks, Kira.
Frankly, Dr. Brown, the question was out there, and so certainly.
In a true superintendent forum, I'm going to ask Jason Trumbull to come up because he's been dealing with this baseline. We're talking about pre-assessments and the assessments we need to do as part of our APPR process and the SLOs. Are there anything particularly you would add about the baselines that are occurring at the high school? That's his question.
Well, we've got some experts over on the side, but I would say just in the sense that in every course, your teachers are identifying particular skills that they want all of you to acquire. So this is a way for them to measure where you are, and in essence, where we can measure where they are, how many of you grew in those particular skills throughout the school year. So baseline is in essence where you are right now. We'll be measuring that throughout the year, and ultimately at the end of the year to make sure that all of you have achieved certain growth over the school year.
And Jason, this is a part of the APPR process.
That's correct. This comes
has been
from
pushed
the state.
Down. Noah's question was why.
Yeah.
Well, the federal government through the state government is pushing down to the local level, to all the local districts in New York State, to to have an APPR process, which is a performance review of all staff, principals, and, well, teachers this year, principals in the future. So this is part of what the district has to do. So it's not a question of whether, okay, why are we doing this differently now? Well, it's directly from mandates from others, basically.
And I'll simply add, it's not an Ithaca thing. This is done for every course throughout the state of New York.
That doesn't mean it's a bad thing to be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not what I was saying.
It's called,
Not just because it's required and mandated.
it's called a baseline now, but in other, you call it pre-assessments in the past. It's always good to know where students are when they walk into your classroom. And for us to think we know is presumptuous of us. So when pushed about this pre-assessment piece, all the time I say, how do we think we know everything a young person knows? So this is one way of us figuring out what's in your head and how we need to differentiate or adjust what we do for you. And even in PE, as someone who's given many, many baseline pre-assessments, which happen every day in the gym when I work out with people, we know where we are every day. Before I say, oh, you might want to put this weight on, I need to see what you're doing before I make any recommendations.
I think that helps. So we'll move on. No, not yet. Go ahead, son. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just now, I mean, it's great that that's explained to us and everyone watching at home, but there are still like a significant portion of the student population that's really unclear about this. So, I mean, we're working on ways to try and make sure that information like this is disseminated to students properly. So if any of you had input on how, crucial pieces of information like this that directly affect students can be conveyed to them in a way that they can understand, not just as related to this, but to other decisions and policies that the board has, we would welcome your feedback.
I just wanted to briefly report on a opportunity we had. We attended a conference that dealt with game-based learning, and it was a very interesting conference. We, had an opportunity to learn a lot about how game-based learning is used, and also how it relates to curriculum and how it's tied into what we do in our classrooms every day. In particular, there were some breakout sessions, and the one that I attended dealt with game-based learning as it relates to response to intervention and RTI, and so just wanted to report out that that's what we were involved in, at least the breakout session I was involved in, just sharing that information.
Very good. Anyone else? We'll move on. Consent agenda. Consideration of counts. It's much shorter this week.
It's like unbelievably short.
So,
J. True moves consent agenda.
thanks, Jay.
Second.
Thank you, Jude. Any questions? Personnel, accounts, we're all good?
I might have.
Jay may have a question. Go ahead.
Gotta get there.
While we're doing that, I can.
I'm there.
You're there. There you go.
Yeah.
Personnel.
Yeah. There seemed to be like a new category. I see Bob's there, right? Yeah. So.
Bob just stepped out of the room.
Yeah.
Bob, that doesn't work. You're sitting over.
I'm just trying to find change. There's nation appointments, substitute teacher.
The after school stuff.
Maybe there was extended day, and that's fine.
But there's an
Edge program, that's okay. Hang on, leave it as. Hang on one sec. Changes and revisions was okay. Salary changes, appointments, salary adjustments.
While Jay's looking,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
While Jay's looking, I promised to be on good behavior tonight. My niece is in the room with her crutches. Hi, Abby.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Is it Uncle Rob or what's the?
Yeah, it's Uncle Rob.
Yeah.
Abby, are you doing the government class thing?
I am.
Oh,
It's
okay.
made her blush.
And he knows that
for
I
Abby,
blush
no.
easily too, so.
So how's the ankle?
Good. 2 more weeks on crutches and then home free.
Very good.
All right, I'm ready.
How you doing?
So, Bob, there's a whole bunch of employees, under changes and revisions, teaching assistants that are going and picking up,
There's other fractionals as well, right?
Yeah, there's
Page
All right.
yes, page 9. I'm on.
Yeah, we saw that.
I don't understand it. Maybe it's just reassignments for a whole.
I think the first time I didn't have my electronic device with me when I.
But you can come look at this.
I believe they're after normal hours, they pick up fractional.
Some noon hours.
Yeah, they're called noon hours. They're not really happening. I don't know why they're called noon hours. It's been that way forever, but they happen before school. If they have a one-to-one student, they need to get off the bus, and after school to help that child back on the bus. That's typically
These are aides.
Yeah, those
yes.
are typically, and if they're teaching assistants that do that work, they're paid at the aide rate for that amount of time that they do it.
And they're almost all called noon hours, and
Yeah.
plus 4 hours at noon hour.
It's one of those
Okay.
things that I
So-
haven't tackled, but that's why, it's called noon hour, but it doesn't actually occur at noon, so.
Okay. It just had me confused because of that. Thank you. I'm done.
Jay's done. Are we good? It's been moved. All in favor? That's not everyone. So is everyone, but I have to count it up. So it's Judy, Rob, Jay, Seth, Chris, Pat, and Eldred. Those opposed. Those others. Jay is Brad. Brad is abstaining. See what happens when we go ahead. Easy votes. Got it. So we're all good. So on to Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Rob.
I answer to all.
Just one item tonight. As it's already been noted, I wish to thank the board for its unwavering support for co-curriculum. Not only the art programs, but athletic programs as well. Since my arrival, we've done nothing but grow programs. As opposed to cutting or taking things away. We've added everything from what we're doing with the arts to adding a trainer in the mornings at 6:30 a.m. and young people like Noah are benefiting from that. So thank you for your support of the co-curricular programs. Most recently, an example of your support, as you've said to me and others, when there's interest in an activity, you'd find a way to provide resources to provide an opportunity for young people to be engaged, particularly at the modified level. We had a recent situation where we had many young people wishing to play modified soccer. Going into the sports season, we only have one team. Because of your support, we had an opportunity to add an additional team to provide, instead of cutting and saying to young people they won't have an opportunity to play and be engaged and do all things we know students can benefit from when enrolled in co-curricular programs. We added a team, we found a coach, and we were able to put together a schedule. And in addition to having me thank you, I was trying to figure out a way to share the kind of support that we are receiving because of your efforts. So we put together a short video, and I think this video does it much better than anything I could have shared. So unfortunately, unlike me, I haven't had a chance to test things, so I'm hoping this is going to work, the sound and all. So I apologize if it's too loud or we have nothing, which right now we have nothing. So give me 1 second to get this back and start over again.
Hello, my name is Leticia, and I just want to say thank you so much for giving my son an opportunity to play soccer. It's one of the things that he loves to do in his life, and thanks to the second team that you read the team, the school to have, is that he's having fun right now.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the board for getting the second team and allowing my son to play. And we really appreciate Coach Director stepping up. So thanks again, board.
Thank you. Appreciate all the efforts that
put in his yeah.
Hey, Tony Rich. I'm a parent of a student who plays on the soccer team, and I just want to let you know how grateful we are to have 2 teams. It's nice to see 75 kids try out for a sport, and we're glad that you recognize that there's so much interest and participation from the kids that you create a second team. We think Sam Trechter's an amazing coach, and so thank you so much.
Okay, what I said before was this is fantastic. Really, really appreciate that the kids at Modified weren't cut out of the ability to play school soccer. It would have been a horrible time of their lives to not be able to play with the program. Was just great.
So thank you to Sam Trechter, who's the coach, and I apologize for the amateur nature of the video, but that wasn't one of our professionals, but we have but again, when a board member
is the amateur in the room.
It was good.
But you're getting the sense of the power of an iPhone, and when we walk out and we see the folks who were affected by your decisions each day, what they're thinking. So I just want to say thank you again for your support of co-curricular programs, and hopefully get a sense of how it's impacting your work.
Thank you to the teacher who stepped up on short notice to coach, and to Rhonda Bullard for putting the schedule together.
And we would push right back and say thank the community for supporting the kids in the community, well, kids in the school, because without the support from the community, the district can't do what it does. So we can say, sure, this is a great opportunity to put a small investment in the kids, but it's really the community that steps up and every year to support the kids in the community. So thank you, Dr. Brown, for facilitating, and thank you again to Rhonda and Coach for stepping up. It's great.
It's sort of like a commercial where I think I've seen on TV where everyone's thanking one another, but when it comes back to the kids who have an interest, and so you can say, thank me as a kid, because they did some good work just to have this interest and want to participate. That's what's tough. So I think.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, I'm not even going to mention it would be great if 75 kids came out for football, but that's okay. We're going to move on. And we appreciate that, Dr. Brown. Anything else?
That's all.
And on to school district business, which is Board of Education business, mission and vision policy. The first policy, I think, double, quadruple zero, correct?
Sure.
Sean, we talked about this at our last meeting, and we'd like to go ahead and adopt, I believe, unless there's were there any other changes in the interim?
No, but unless we can bring it up on the board real quick here, maybe it'd be who us to read it out loud.
I would think that would be good.
This is policy 0000, the board mission statement and vision, the district mission statement and vision. The Board of Education recognizes that to govern effectively, it must clearly define why the district exists and what it aspires to be. The board therefore adopts the following mission statement to convey the district's purpose, and the vision to set forth what the district should strive to become in the future. And the mission statement and the vision are both taken from some of the work that's been done this summer. Some folks may see some of the new poster boards that are up around the board building talking about the mission and vision, the mission statement and vision. So this was done in collaboration with Dr. Brown and community members, and very little minor wordsmithing here. But I digress. Mission statement. Our mission is to engage, educate, and empower. We will strive to engage all students in the importance and relevance of thinking, to educate every learner to communicate, comprehend, and collaborate for understanding, and to empower all in the ICSD to achieve academic excellence. The vision. We envision 6,000 plus thinkers. Thinking is foundational to the development of self, society, and democracy, is the cornerstone of all creative ideas, problem-solving, scientific discoveries, innovations, and social good. We envision a bold community of 6,000 plus thinkers. That is policy 0000.
Oh, is this first reading, second reading?
This would be a second reading. First reading was at the last meeting.
So we're discussion and vote.
Discussion and vote, correct.
It's already been moved, correct? Was it moved and tabled? Do you want to go ahead and move it?
It was tabled.
Moved and tabled, right. So any other wordsmithing, questions, discussion? Anything, Pat?
I'm content.
Pat's on the policy committee and isn't content, so good luck for me, I guess. So. Anything else?
Call the question.
So it's been moved, seconded. All in favor? That's everyone this time, so we can move on. And we're going to see that mission and vision posted anywhere and everywhere, I would think. And we'll see that. Then we get on to the flyer distribution policy, which policy committee has worked long and hard on.
We've had some conversations, both via email and otherwise, and we should note and begin by saying that, of course, this took priority because we are very much aware of the number of community partners that rely on putting flyers in the backpack of elementary school students, and some schools rely on that much more than others. We're aware of that as well, and so the goal was to put a policy together in relative quick order. We took a look at the New York State's School Board Association's templates. We did some slight modifications. We looked at some other models that are around the state and around the country. And in essence, what we came up with is a policy that opens our students' backpacks to federal, state, and local governments and not-for-profit organizations, so long as they have a qualifying disclaimer which says these materials are neither sponsored nor endorsed by the Board of Education or the Ithaca School District, the superintendent, or this school. And we thought that simple process alone should give us the flexibility and create the limited public forum that the law requires us to create, so as we can to move this quickly. And the recommendation from the policy committee is, given the heightened importance of this, given the point in the school year, that however we proceed after this wordsmithing and debating, that if we move it, that we actually vote on it today and not do a second reading, so we can actually let our elementary schools start sending things home with our students. I tried to look at some of the questions that I know that Brad sent me and other folks. We had a lively policy meeting with both board officers in the room, as well as a couple of our senior administration folks, and Adam Kiesecki was there as well to give some advice as both the teacher and the ITA rep. And the policy tended to pass us unanimously. The policy passed out of committee unanimously, and here it is for your review.
I believe I saw today that there were some modifications to the language.
There should be a slight modification to the language or two. I wish I could tell you exactly what that was. Something about the superintendent and his designee, and giving the superintendent the opportunity to say, here you go, if I could be so bold. The agency or organization seeking to distribute information to students in district schools must provide sufficient copies of the documents. The district will not make copies for this purpose. Unless an exemption has been granted by the superintendent, all flyers, advertising material, and/or announcements must include the following disclaimer. So the only thing that was added was giving the superintendent discretion whether or not flyers needed to have a disclaimer. And our thought about that is that there are a couple of not-for-profit organizations that we want to partner with, and we want an explicit recommendation or endorsement. And if we require it on all things, then that would remove that opportunity. And so, unless stated otherwise by the superintendent, all flyers, advertising material must include the disclaimer. That's the way in which we resolve this. That was the only addition that I'm aware of.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
No, one is just wordsmithing. We've got the superintendent capitalized twice and not capitalized a couple of times. I suggest we decide which way we want to be.
Did that miss my pen?
And be consistent.
Ranger?
Should be kept.
It did miss my pen.
Let's just be consistent.
I don't think I added it. It did miss my pen because I didn't add that phrase to the superintendent, but yes.
All right, very good. It speaks to advertising materials and announcements in its title. I know I emailed you about this, and yet we don't really talk about. We were talking about backpack flyers. We're not talking about advertising. I see our friends from Fine Arts Boosters are here. They're going to sell advertising. It's going to be in every program. Does that need to be approved? Does it need to have the disclaimer printed on it? Is that our intention?
No, great, and maybe we need to clarify some language. I think our intention is simply to address those things that people are trying to send home in children's backpacks and our students' backpacks, or distribute them through school, not programs for events or that material.
Okay.
So your recommendation, you're recommending a clarification of some sort, or
I would
clarify the title?
I would just strike it from the title. Distribution of flyers
and announcements. That's fine.
And announcements.
Yeah, why would be an advertising material?
Well, in large part because this was the language from this one. I think they're also thinking about the ways in which sometimes elementary schools get asked to put out material that's soliciting things.
School pictures.
So, right, school pictures, classrooms.
All right, I get that.
But it's still,
this is the backpack policy, correct?
We're not calling it the backpack policy. Maybe we should, but yes.
Or put that. Backpacks are going to become obsolete.
You're going to need something to carry a little fancy iPad, so slow down, man, right? And I'm fine if, you know, folks are, if that's a friendly amendment to strike out advertising material. That for me is...
Well, I get what you're saying about, you know, you saw where I went with it.
I do.
In my mind,
yep.
I read advertising material and it said, you know, sports boosters sell things, you know, advertising, you know.
Well, the senior night, right, the senior night program,
yeah, sure.
that has
any of those,
as
and
well.
this would imply that anything like that has to be approved via the
It might or might
superintendent.
not, because at the very beginning talks about what you're sending home.
That's the interpretation of the group that's sitting here right now. Spin forward 5 years.
Right when it comes to
half
court.
of us are gone, and or more than half of us aren't here. And somebody reads this and says, "My kid was sent home with, or saw some advertising in a music program, and it didn't have this disclaimer." And you people are pursuing that.
We've never, to my knowledge, looked at the ads in a program.
I know we haven't.
No, and I think that we're saying that...
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe
so
you should
if it's recommended by everyone else, why don't we just delete those two words and say distribution of flyers and announcements policy?
Yes.
And then make it up.
We'll let that board 5 years from now worry about it.
That would be exactly my feeling.
And I don't think it shows up actually in the rest of the...
It does not.
We have 3-year terms.
So, Kira, you got that change? Another question? I know you might have another question too that I hope we didn't
That reads better.
I think you can see it.
I got a question. Simple.
Jay has a question.
At the end, the superintendent is directed to develop and disseminate the necessary regulations to ensure that this policy is implemented throughout the district. What do you think that's going to end up being or looking like?
I think it's like the packet of insurance information I get that I never read that tells me what the protocol is going to be. By that I mean I think every policy near the end of it has a statement that says something similar to that about the superintendent is thereby directed to develop the procedures and protocols to carry out this policy. What it may eventually look like, and I think I sent it to folks, is the Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland who have created 2 different decision trees for elementary and secondary schools. So what it may mean at some point in time is the superintendent says, rather than me approve every policy, I now designate this process in place, and here you go. And this policy as written gives him or her the flexibility to do that.
And I don't think we can put in the policy, Matt or Jason take care of this.
No, well, effectively, it's maybe what takes place.
He struck the...
that came out.
That was words. That got wordsmith.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was at that policy committee, and that did come out.
Or designee, it got turned into.
Yeah, right.
Read, Jason.
And the only addition I would have would be the after the disclaimer. The disclaimer must be clearly visible, and it says on all copies. I would say the disclaimer must be clearly visible and on all copies. I think the distinction is important.
Okay.
And beyond that, we're good.
And you want, well, we hope to pass this policy tonight, and so those changes, revisions are noted. And Pat, go ahead.
I have a very tiny revision, the very first sentence of the second paragraph with advanced approval. I think it should be advanced approval.
The first one.
Oh, yeah.
The table.
And also, I just want to clarify, now that we've struck advertising materials, that the policy does limit any, quote, advertising to not-for-profits, that there was never the intent to have for-profit solicitations going home, commercial solicitations going home to children. These would all be fundraisers or classes or something that are attached to not-for-profits.
I move that,
Seth, go ahead.
That we adopt policy 1145 as modified.
Second.
By Judy. We can continue to ask questions and comment. Anything else? We good? All in favor? That's everyone, and even elders than I can see now. Okay, very good. So that's everyone, and Sean, is that it for policies?
That is it for policy for today.
Wow, all right. And we're still killing time for Ghana, so we're going to go ahead with
Mr. Jason Trumbull.
Lauren's here.
Just in case there are questions, we have a teacher on staff who's here to answer questions, and we have Mr. Trumbull, Chief Secretary Officer, who's been here.
All right, as opposed to the modifications to the agenda that were approved earlier, we're going to switch back and remodify the agenda to go ahead and do Ghana now because it's after 7:30. And then you're going to do the next.
Sorry, that was my fault. I'm also directing the musical, and we're currently having an informational meeting, so I had to wait for Mr. Wen.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Soon back there, so.
I'm just giving Dr. Brown a hard time.
I'm trying to help him out.
So we're going to go ahead and do the Ghana trip that I will not be going on. Well, please come up.
Okay.
No, definitely.
You may want to frame it a little bit for the board.
A couple weeks ago, Lauren, and actually I'll back up, had submitted a proposal back in early April, I believe it was, to take a small group of students and chaperones to Ghana and on a cultural exchange and work a little bit at a university. And we thought it was important because it does need board approval that Lauren come and answer any questions that you may have. She submitted the proposal. I believe folks have read that, but to have the person that put this together talk a little bit about who's going, how they're funding it, what it might look like, what the overall vision is. Lauren is here to join us, and as she said, she's in between two meetings, so we appreciate her being here, but we have her, and let's take advantage of doing it. How does that sound?
So I guess we'll hear about it a bit, and then we can have a motion. All right, we'll do that. So can we hear about it a bit?
Sure. So right now we currently have 6 students that are really excited about going. The trip is going to Ghana. We would be studying at the Kikrobi Institute. And what is exciting, this trip kind of was born out of initially a club of students that had something in common in the Invisible Children group, which is in a totally different setting and focused in a totally different part of Africa. And we had initially just talked about kind of this concept of the studying of African nations in school tends to be kind of disseminated through Western culture, and so kind of getting to the root and trying to really understand heritage a little bit better. So we did that initially through the work with Uganda. And although initially we were looking into trips to Uganda, it's generally not a good idea to go to a country that is still in conflict. And so we were looking around at other options and also felt that Ghana had a really rich cultural history, but also kind of brings together Western influence in the conflicts, the fact that being on the southern coast that you have the slave trade that also happened there. So you can actually go and see some of those histories clashing together. And so the trip is through EF Tours. I know that there have been several EF Tours that the high school has done, and they're a really trusted group, and I feel really confident in their competence to help kind of guide us in this tour. It's a 10-day tour. It will be during spring break, so students will not be missing any school. It includes cultural programs, but also lectures and community service, as well as trips around the area to local parks, and which includes part of the area that was initially part of the slave trade. So students have been working to fundraise really since before last April, because it is an expensive trip, and so I know that they're really excited to move this forward and go on to that next step and actually go.
What's the itinerary? Where will you be going?
The itinerary I think should be included also in, I'm sorry, I didn't bring it in front of me, but most of the time is spent at the Kikrobi Institute and around that area, doing lecture series, doing community projects within that area, and then there's like a 2-day trip where we're down on the coast, but it is 10 days. Again, that I didn't bring with me, I'm sorry.
Right, it is here.
We
have it in Dropbox.
Okay, good.
I couldn't find it.
Oh, sorry.
So you're planning to bring these children to one of the slave castles?
Yes. Well, I'm not, but that EF Tours is part of their, and working with Kikrobi Institute. And Kikrobi Institute is an institute that's actually not American, but is centered in Ghana, and one of its focuses is actually bringing people to Ghana and being able to teach about their cultural history themselves rather than the reverse, which is kind of learning it from afar, which I think is what's so interesting and empowering about the situation for everyone involved, I guess.
So there'll be folks from here who will be there helping the kids negotiate what they see and hear and experience?
Yes.
I would tell you, having been there on multiple occasions, someone better be there to help the kids deal with the emotional impact of what they will hear and see. It is, I can't articulate it here, and I won't do the performance dance in front of the television, but I will tell you, the first time you experience that, especially if they're in the African American children on the strip, you almost need somebody to be there at that moment to help you through the process.
Right, and I think, again, that's part of why I think a trip like this is so important, because that kind of experience, not that I'm trying to force it upon people, but that can't be replicated in a classroom. And so, you know, for people to experience that and actually be able to bring back and also kind of share those experiences with other people, I think is really important for our students.
Well, I'm actually making a strong suggestion that as a person who is primarily responsible for making this trip successful, that if you haven't thought about it already, that it will be critical to ensure that there are people who can interact with young people directly after that experience.
Thank you.
Jay has a question.
Yeah.
Is it 6 kids?
6.
How were the 6 kids chosen or selected, or from what group are they coming from?
We opened it up to the entire school, and we had a lot of kids come to informational meetings to find out about the trip, and included also parent meetings as well to follow up for those students that were interested. So there was no limiting factor in terms of who could apply. In terms of funding, both Samantha Little and myself tried reaching out to the community and finding scholarships, either partial or whole, for students, for people to apply, and both of us were unsuccessful in those endeavors. So currently what we have are students who have, and the mix that we have are from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. We have kids that are working, and I don't want to speak to their personal experiences too much, but we have kids that have worked out deals with their parents. We have kids that have made 100% of their payment themselves, working all summer and continuing to working during the year, who have made that trip happen. And I have tried to support other students by putting them, you know, teaching them and trying to facilitate the process where they can learn how to find those grants and find those scholarships themselves, since Samantha and I were not successful.
So did you turn away children after you were not successful in finding?
No.
It's still...
Because we were hoping for scholarships that we would have then posted and said, we have scholarships. Apply if you fit these criteria, but without those scholarships, we didn't make that offer, so we simply made the offer, anyone who's interested, come to the meeting. Here's the information about the trip. And those students who were interested in finding further fundraising or further support, I was willing to work with those students in finding those things and supporting them in that process.
Are the chaperones each paying the $4,000?
No. That is part of the way the EF Tour works, is that essentially it's for the work that I'm doing to coordinate and put things together, essentially is my stipend to do this trip.
But what about the rest of the check?
With only 6 students going currently, I'm the only chaperone. If we have more students, then that would be something that's worked out. We had discussed if we got in a case where there was kind of a strange number of students to chaperone, that the chaperones would split the cost together essentially, because you get a chaperone for 6 students, and then we would split the cost between the 2 of us. At this point, we only have 6, so it has not been something that we have needed to deal with yet.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just looking at the curfew. How did we determine the time frame 10 p.m. And I'm assuming it says that everyone would stay in the group at 10 o'clock and then lock in at 11. Where did the 10 o'clock time frame come from?
That is through EF Tours. Again, they're a professionally certified educational tour group that does this regularly, which is part of why I was interested. Not to pick on her, but Carlin Gray did a trip to Costa Rica, and so when thinking about traveling abroad, I spoke to some of the other teachers in the school, and I've been interested in doing a abroad program. I picked up the course that used to do the exchange, and having not ever traveled with students internationally by myself, I felt more confident doing it with a group that is certified and well practiced and has an excellent reputation for my personal comfort level, and so I am sticking with what they recommend.
Could you explain a little bit more about the service learning component?
Yes. It depends on what exactly, the itinerary can possibly change, but there are options of either working at, visiting a clinic where you could be doing various things in terms of interacting with people I haven't looked as much into that one because the other option is going to a school and actually interacting with students who are in schools there.
Is that a 10-day commitment too?
No. Maybe I misunderstood the question.
How much of time for the
service learning?
Yeah.
It would be one day of the 10 days.
I'm all for this and all, but I have another question.
Yeah, no problem.
And that's because we had if my memory serves me correctly, another international trip, and it was, I think it was I may have this wrong, but as an example, it'll lead to my question. And I think they went in the summer and whatever. And in the end, we decided it didn't need, or it didn't seem that it even needed the school district's approval or anything. And it seemed to be a trip just that someone was leading and all that, and we didn't need the school board's approval or districts. And so why would this trip, and like I say, I'm for it, but is there some reason that in order to go with this organization, or is it requiring the school board's approval?
My understanding is no, but because the way that I know these students is as a teacher, I feel like it was the most appropriate way to go, and that it's the standard procedure within our district. So that was what I went for.
There's actually a policy that says anything international needs to be approved by the board. Forgive me, I don't know.
If it's a
This
right, but again, hypothetically,
right.
I could, like, EF Tours, you don't have to be necessarily
it could be
a
an
teacher.
informal group.
But so no, but.
This isn't a class per se, but obviously you're taking children from the high school on a trip with a teacher, and I'm going to probably say that the district is going to be looked at as an authority to go ahead and approve. Go ahead.
So we have policy 4531 that deals with international and domestic trips. I quickly just kind of looked at it and try to make sense of it. Does this trip comply with that policy and all that's required for us to do? I know we need board approval, but there are other things listed in there. I mean, have you checked?
Yeah, we're in the process right now of looking through the insurance pieces to make sure everything fits that way.
So based on that, do we need to hold off on a vote, or should it come to us at a time when that piece is checked off, or how do you want us to?
Well, we're going to need approval pretty quickly, but
because it's a 90-day
advance.
Is this kind of it, or what's?
So part of the problem was I had actually put it up for approval back in April.
Yeah,
and so some of I think maybe the rearranging of who was in charge of what, and Jason coming into a new position, that information got left to the wayside. And then I had emailed, and then we went on summer vacation, and so I didn't check my email immediately, and then got so it was like this drawn out process. So by the time we got back to school, there had been emails exchanged, but I wasn't even in the state to be able to say, like, come in and be like, can we follow through with this? So as soon as school started, that was what I did, and so we've been working through that process at this point, because now there is a point where we do need to move forward or risk that students who have put money and saved money could lose, not all, but some.
Right.
And I don't want to be responsible for that personally.
But I want to make sure we're right on our insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't have that for you this evening.
Students are required through EF to buy insurance as well, so purchase.
I just want to make sure we've got that.
So that's the only missing piece at this point, whether the...
We know if the insurance piece doesn't check out, we won't go. So what I'm hearing, we need the approval tonight just to move forward at all.
Okay.
The planning, trouble.
That is correct.
If it helps, Seth, when I went to Costa Rica with Taylor, it was the same company, and they have insurance, and they have an insurance policy listed. So the kids can buy insurance, like supplemental insurance, but they also are insured separate from that.
Yeah.
So
I just saw a policy and a whole bunch of stuff, and I didn't have a chance. I just wanted to make sure Jason or someone
so
made sure.
I think it's in writing somewhere.
It is required of the trip.
Yeah. So anyway.
So as someone who leads student international trips every year, or has the privilege of leading these every year, and has been to Ghana a couple times with students, it's a phenomenal trip, and Ghana is a phenomenal country to go and explore. And as someone who teaches about Africa, let me say I just greatly appreciate your language about talking about places in conflict as opposed to the other ways in which we talk about African countries repeatedly. So with all that caveat being said, I move that we adopt, or the board approve this international travel trip experience for our students.
Second?
Second by Pat. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. All in favor? That's going to be everyone, I think, I believe. So, we're good?
Travel safely.
So that was the last voting item on the on our agenda, and we are going to go ahead and with our English language arts framework and work session. Literacy framework.
And I'm inviting some friends as we do with every work session.
So we have a lovely document for you all that's bound and has a nice hardcover. Should we start off with these? All right.
No, go ahead. You can give them
You have a lot.
So we're getting paper done.
More up here.
We're getting nice paper.
Did you have it?
And we know Sorry.
It's thick. It actually was recommended by a board member.
Very good, thank you.
You were there.
Oh, yes. This is a serious document.
It's intimidating. Wow.
It's a serious document with really little writing in it, so that's great. So as we did with the new math curriculum at the elementary level, Singapore math, which now we know much more about because we had a work session. I think you want to talk to us about the new ELA framework, so please.
We wanted to thank you for having us tonight to talk about the Elementary Literacy Framework, or otherwise known as the ELF in the school division, one of the many acronyms that float around, although ELF I don't think is quite caught on everywhere yet, but we're trying.
Oh, we're gonna keep that one.
So essentially, I have three people with me tonight: Lydia Ali Coyle, Lynn Vanderwert, and Andrea Rennie. Lydia and Andrea are teachers on special assignment this year. They are specifically working with the professional development side of things with all the elementary schools and all the elementary teachers. They are co-facilitating the release days. That started last week with pre-K and K, and today we have 5th grade teachers, and we'll talk about those a bit. And they also are getting to schools to do professional development with school-wide faculties or grade-level PLCs or individual teachers. Lynn Vanderwert is the assistant to the principal at BJM. She is also the curriculum chair for English Language Arts. And so all three of these people, along with 20-some other teachers, were involved in putting together this framework last year. This framework is a very strong effort at bringing common language across the school district and in all the elementary classrooms. Common language is one of those things that sounds really easy, but it takes a lot of work. And so the first part is laying out what we believe in and what we want to see in all the classrooms. And then the hard work comes in actually getting everyone to see what that should look like, getting them to start implementing that in the classrooms, getting them to practice, getting them to reflect on what they're doing, and getting them to be open about where they want help and where they want to work together on improving. Elements of this literacy framework are probably in every single class, in every single elementary school. We're just trying to put it all together and really have a consistent experience for all of our students. So that being said, I mentioned the release days. Release days started last week on, I think, Monday and Tuesday with pre-K and K. Today we had 5th grade. I was out of town Monday and Tuesday of last week, but today I was able to attend the afternoon session of the 5th grade. It was math that we were focused on in the afternoon, but I just want to report that engagement level was high. Teachers were really learning valuable strategies that they could take back, tomorrow into their classroom. And in fact, one of the math problems that they're working on, I will probably take back home tonight because I'm still working on it. And then we're actually expecting our 5th graders to do that by the end of the year, so I realized that I need to attend more of these sessions and probably visit some more of these classrooms more often. But one of the things we're doing with the release days is we are really asking the teachers. We obviously are working on the common language part, and we're working on rolling out this literacy framework in Singapore math, but we're also asking teachers, how do they want to learn this? Where do they need help? And how can they act like a PLC? I've been calling it a horizontal PLC. So all the 5th grade teachers met today, probably for the first time in a long time, across, from every school as a horizontal PLC. And so there's a lot of sharing going on. There's a lot of discussing going on. And so we're asking them to really own this time as well. It's not just the people sitting next to me that are just leading it. We're asking for their leadership as well. So if today was any example, I really saw high engagement, and I was pleased with what I saw. Thursday, we have another grade, 4th grade. Friday's 3rd, and then we have 2nd and 1st next week. And at the end of, we actually won't do the formal invitation today, but we have another round in December, and then in January we have a round where we want to invite the board to attend, and we'll send an invite to you all, and you can choose what day you want to come if you have time. But there's some really valuable work going on, and we want you to see it because it's both a large resource we're putting out there, but also we want the community to understand the amount of time going in and the amount of the investment going into making these a valuable learning opportunity for teachers. So that being said, today or tonight we are going to just walk you through little sections of this booklet. We printed it out because it is so vast it's hard to flip through on an iPad or computer. And so we're going to walk you through how a teacher would walk through this document, just looking at one slice. So kindergarten is one of the slices we're going to look at. And we encourage you at any point to ask questions, both as a board member and how a teacher might look at this. And we will do our best to try to answer that. And we'll have time for questions at the end too.
So I did want to say that we are working on rolling this out this year, but we worked hard. There was a team of 25 teachers and administrators, and I know Judy, you were there last year, and I think Albert was there last year, and the work was facilitated by Lynn, myself, and Adam Pisecki. So the 3 of us worked throughout the year to facilitate this work and make this a living document. And we do want to say that this is bound today because of Seth. We mentioned that to him, we wanted this to be a living document, and we had these stapled versions of it. He said, if you want this to be a living document, you need to make it so it can survive. So thank you, Seth, for your suggestion. We went off and made it a living, more of a living document. Thanks for your input on that. What we're going to do today is we're going to, we want you to come away from this knowing that our goal around all this is quality literacy instruction in every classroom. And so we're going to work today and have a conversation as we would with a classroom teacher. And the goal around these conversations, the elementary literacy framework, the release days, is to develop that common language, to develop that district-wide grade level PLCs, and to provide that common planning time so that we can use this common language and understand it and share our strategies and really improve literacy instruction throughout the district. So Lynn is coming to us as a first grade teacher today, and she is bringing us some work. Do you want to describe it, or should we ask them?
Sure. I'm just going to describe my problem of practice that I'm having. So this is my baseline data. These are 3 of my students, and we talked about those baseline assessments. This was given 2 weeks ago in a first grade classroom. And what I'm struggling with is, as a slice of my class, how in my writing program can I meet the needs of learners that are performing at such diverse.
Those are 3 different kids?
Yeah, those are 3 different kids.
So if Lynn came to me or to Andrea with these papers saying, how do I proceed forward, the first thing that I might ask her about this is, what do you see? So I'll ask you as a larger PLC, what do you see here that these first graders are doing?
Tremendous artwork.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I see the writing is different levels of control and all that.
Yeah, I mean, really down to control on that first one, to composing. What else?
There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, there is no wrong answer. It's just.
What's the assignment? Write a story about something? Or?
So the prompt was, think of something that you know a lot about. Write all that you know about this topic. And this was to address informational writing, to find out what kids know about informational writing.
Do all of these kids
This is
have
first
pre-K?
grade. First grade, yeah.
I do not know. Do all these kids have pre-K? Did they have pre-K?
I don't know that.
You don't know that. So that's a question we would ask then. So if we're looking at this, this raises more questions, and that is exactly the kind of thing that we do in those conversations. So we ask the teacher, what do you see? I say what I see. We raise some questions there. And so, based on that, we say,
Right, and these are the conversations that PLCs have too. It's not even just that their staff developers.
Yeah, and so was there like a time limit? You have, these kids have so much time, and one did 5 lines, and one did 4 words, and one
All students were given, they were all given 30 minutes with this.
Were they talking to you at the same time?
It was independent writing, so they were given the prompt and prompted to try the best they can, and then it was all independent from there.
And after they wrote, did they then tell you? No. Okay.
I would love 3 seconds of hearing what you see.
That was the next question. We're going to ask Lynn now.
Right. So some of the things that I noticed when I looked at this writing is that, first of all, that all of the kids came up with something, that they all produced something. There is a pictorial, there's a picture on each page, and every student has some sort of text. Whether or not the text masters the picture can be argued in some. I'm noticing over in this child's over here when I read it, and I'm gonna read it out loud in case you're not used to reading first grade writing. It says, I know a lot about flowers.
Flowers need sun.
Keep going.
Flowers need sun to help them grow, and rain to help them. Then I'm
pollen.
Okay,
and rain too.
Oh, rain too.
They have pollen.
Oh, very good.
Bees
use the pollen and make honey.
Science, there we go. That's right.
Make honey.
Something she knows a lot about.
Right. So in this child's writing, I'm noticing that she understands kind of the structure of informational text. She has an introduction where she introduces what she's going to tell us about, then she tells us some factual information about it. She's using sentence structure. She has some periods in there. I do notice that she is using some mixture of capitals and lowercase letters, and sometimes some appropriate and some not. I noticed that her sizing of her letters is inconsistent. So her capital letters are not larger than her lowercase letters in the writing. And I noticed that her picture matches the text, so there's a match between those. When I look down at the writing sample in the bottom left, I again see that there's something depicted in the picture, but when I actually look at the text, I'm unable to decipher what it says. And I notice there's actually an upside down I as the second character there that's kind of floating below the line. And there's the letter A is below, kind of what looks like could be a word, but I'm not able to decipher any words there. So I'm unsure if the picture matches the text or what that student was intending to write there. However, the student knows some letters, knows how to form some letters, both uppercase and lowercase. Spacing on the lines is not consistent.
And seems to have a knowledge that not just the picture tells a story. When he or she was asked to write about something they knew about, there was some knowledge that text is a piece of a story or of an informational piece.
Yeah. It's interesting when I look at the picture too, I'm just noticing this now, I notice in the person, there are arms and legs, but it's interesting that the arms and legs are all coming off the head. There is no body there, so just in awareness around how to, structure and how to actually represent symbolically.
That has still given her entrance? No.
And then the top one up here, I noticed, in the text, does anyone want to give a stab at reading this one?
I know what it says. It's got to say, I went to Darien Lake, we had fun.
You got it.
All right.
Yeah. This is a first grade teacher.
Yeah.
Wait, did you just say that is fantastic. I went to Darien Lake and we had fun.
We totally is, right?
Yeah.
I get it now, right? That's clear. I would not have gotten it.
Wait a minute, I think that's what she always says.
I've never seen this before.
Yeah, we didn't even talk to her about this.
Ringer. And so is the picture a roller coaster?
Make a camper. Make
But when I look at, this student, understands story structure. So when I think about informational writing, this is something this student is talking about an event, probably in his life, and kind of telling that narrative structure, which is different than this informational piece over here where you're giving the facts and information about something. But the student understands left to right directionality of text, has beginning and ending sounds and some middle sounds in words, does have some confusion in the order of letters. So lake, the child wrote E-L-K, right? So whether or not that child knows the word lake and has memorized that the E is in there somewhere and didn't know where to put it. They also don't have the ol sound at the beginning, it's in the middle, so there's some confusion about order of that. Inconsistent word spacing, so there's spaces between some words, but then we have fun is all squished together as one word. All capitals and no punctuation.
So as we speak to Lynn about this, and we speak to you, we've seen a lot of things here in just 3 pieces, and this isn't even her whole class. We're her class. And so then she's come to us and said, so where do I go with this? What do I do? So again, in continuing the questioning, we might say, and I think that's our next question.
We would say,
what does writing look like in your classroom? We don't want to jump right to making assumptions about what this teacher's practice is, or right to giving them solutions, because we don't know what their practice looks like. So we would ask, what does writing look like?
So in my classroom, and I'm putting on my teacher hat, in my classroom we do a writing workshop a couple times a week, 3, sometimes 4. And during writing workshop, I always start by giving a whole group lesson to all my students where I model writing in some way. Either I read a piece that I have written and share that with them, or sometimes I use a book and I'll read a story and pull out a piece that a published author has written, and we'll notice something about that writing together. I'll show it to them, talk to them about it. After that mini lesson, I send my students off to write at their assigned tables. And as students are working independently to write, I go around and conference with individual students. And during my conferencing, I check in and ask questions like, what are you working on? I try to notice things in their writing like I just did here and do kind of like on-the-spot teaching. So if I notice a student isn't leaving spaces between words, I'll target that. Or perhaps if the student is writing a fictional story when we're working on informational, I might prompt that student to notice what type of writing they're doing and what the intended prompt was.
What are the other adults in the class doing?
Right, so it depends on the day whether or not I have adults. Sometimes I'm the only person there, which is fine, and the kids are fairly independent. Again, they are first graders, and for anybody who's been in a first grade classroom during writing workshop knows it can be a little bit hairy. I mean, where's the pencils? I don't know how to spell this word, whatever. So kids do a lot of self-help and using strategies to do the best they can. At times I have an ESOL teacher, an English as a second language teacher, who pushes in, and she then also conferences with students at the same time.
So now that we have a little bit of information of what is going on in Lynn's classroom, this is where we break out the elf. Okay? So that came out really well.
All right, we need a logo up here.
Break it out. I'm not touching that at
So
all.
we may say to them, so, you know, so I hear that you're doing some modeled writing in there and kids are doing independent writing. Let's take a look at the ELF, and we invite you to join us in looking at page 7, which is a description of Ithaca's balanced literacy program. There's a lot of text on this page, but I might lead Lynn to looking at the bottom right-hand square there, which speaks to writing instruction. And that there are some curricular components and some instructional components. So I say, you know, so Lynn, that's so great. I see that you're doing modeled writing and kids are doing independent writing. I'll let you guys read that little box for a minute there so you can see the other parts there.
Yeah, it's a really little box.
It is a little box.
Yeah. I'm good. I'll do it the next time.
While I'm reading this, could you tell me what the different columns are, you know, just frame that for me a little bit there?
Yeah. So we're going towards this ultimate goal in the middle of having engaged independent readers, writers, thinkers, communicators. And these are the 3 large pieces that teachers need to get to. And within these squares, within reading instruction, word study instruction, and writing instruction, there are both curricular components and there are instructional components. So instructional components are like...
That's like the how.
Yeah, what you do.
How you do it, how your room is structured, and the curricular components are the what are you teaching, the content. And you have to have the 2 pieces.
Right. And one thing that I think is really great about the ELF and the structure of this is those questions. So, you know, what these curricular components, what is purpose and text type or something like that. As a teacher, I can flip right to the next page, page 8, and it defines for you what those curricular components are. And this really gets at that common language, you know. So if we're talking about text type and purpose, are we actually all talking about the same thing? Are we talking about the same what that we're teaching?
Because one of the things we've had in the past as we work in different schools and with different groups is we say, so you all do shared writing. Yeah, oh yeah, we do shared writing. And well, so what that means to you and to you can be very different. They both can be wonderful. But until we understand what we mean by that, we really could be talking about very different things. So we're getting some definitions there. And so, you know, if we're working with Lynn, we see, so you're doing modeled writing. Let's look at what modeled writing looks like. And I think that's on page 10. Oh, no, it's on the bottom of page 9. So there's the definition there, and it is the different roles that students and teachers take.
That's a more basic question. When you first showed the 3, the thought that came to my mind for the 2 samples, the 2 children on the left, maybe they just don't know that much about flowers.
About flowers.
About flowers.
Well, they can write about anything they know about. So the prompt was, write about something, actually the prompt is, think about something you know a lot about.
Oh, okay.
Write a piece that tells all about it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So could I push a different direction?
Yeah.
It's easy, I would assume for many people it's easy to look at those 3 different examples and to make value judgments on a child's learning, ability, etc. What I appreciated was what I think I heard was a non-deficit model and trying to understand the student's strengths and where their abilities are and where their strengths are. And can you explain to me, and so thank you for that, that's, we need more of that obviously. Is that also reflected in here, right, sort of an additive strength model as well, as opposed to a deficit model? Is that, do you want to try to capture that in the ELF?
Yes.
Does the ELF do that?
The ELF, we hope captures that. I think one of the pieces that does capture that is that all of these pieces are important at any level. They're not assigned to a grade level and they're not assigned to a grouping or an assessment. So these pieces need to happen pre-K through 5 in a way that meets students' needs. So they're not tied to, so in 5th grade you need to start having independent reading. Independent reading is something that happens in pre-kindergarten in an appropriate way with the appropriate supports for the students. I think that's one way that it speaks to it.
And I think on page 3 they have the guiding principles and beliefs about literacy, and the reason I'm so familiar with this page is they asked the elementary principals did a workshop on this over the summer, and they asked us to do some reflecting on this. And the second bullet point asks for all components of literacy, reading, writing, listening, speaking, viewing, thinking, are equally valued and time is provided for students to do each. My experience as a teacher is the student who had the bottom corner oftentimes is the student who could talk to you about what they know a lot about for quite a long time, and so we want this to be multifaceted. You know, it's not just about your strengths as a writer. You also have opportunities to speak to the class. You have opportunities to view things. So that's, I think, one of the powers of this document is that it has those different aspects that we want to explore strengths for each student.
I'd also like to draw your attention to bullet number 5 on page 3 there. And I think this speaks definitely to the non-deficit model, where we speak to literacy acquisition is viewed as a continually evolving process, and literacy skills and understandings are developed over time, and teachers must meet students where they're at in this process and then provide expert instruction to move them forward. So, wherever you're at is where you're at, and our job is to move you forward.
And then if you continue on to the very next page, on page 4, that whole page is devoted to creating a supportive literacy environment. So that, taking the context of seeing students where they are, wherever they are, what skills they come with, how can we support all students? And with with quality literacy instruction, there's no doubt in my mind that every one of those students, that writing we saw, can meet and exceed, what is considered the grade level expectation by the end of the year.
And go ahead.
At what point or where do you teach the coordination for that child to form letters? Two could do that, and
yeah. So going back to page 7, we're going to flip around in here, but.
It's a living document.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly, so a teacher says, but they're making eyes upside down. What do I do? When do I do that? So as important as any piece is word study. So word study instruction includes concepts of print, like understanding that print carries the message.
Oh, okay.
It includes phonemic awareness, that there are sounds, and then phonics, and in there is, learning the alphabet. And then, so that all these pieces must lead to that, and that we value wherever a child is. So the child that was writing about the flowers does not need to spend the kind of time that the child that had the upside down eye does. But that does not mean that that child with the upside down eye is like sitting in the word study instruction. And that it's very clear, which is why this is called balanced literacy, that all students need time on reading instruction, all students need time on writing instruction, all students need time with authentic literacy experiences. And we're very clear in that, and we've spent a lot of time with teachers going through paragraph by paragraph, asking them to grapple with statements like authentic literacy experiences. What does that mean? What does that look like in your room? And so as we're working with a teacher, be it in a large group or one-on-one or at a staff meeting, we say, so, like Lynn, you're doing this modeled writing. How do you think your writing, your instruction might change? What are places where you think you might make changes? And this is after we've had this discussion that we've just had, flipping pages back and forth. What are our philosophies? What are our principles? What are our definitions? And Lynn may say, so I don't know how to really make this all work together. So one thing that we had the people in our groups do, and we had people from each grade level, pre-K through 5, we had them make some sample schedules. And those are in the back.
First grade's on page 16. So these are not schedules at all that we're dictating teachers follow, but they are examples made by teachers in our district of ways that you can fit in all of the components of school day.
And one of the things in the creation of this framework is we looked at research from across the country, we looked at other states, other districts' frameworks, and one of the things that, people have different schedules, people have different lengths of days, and we weren't satisfied with what we saw. So we said, well, let's see what we're doing. Let's put that in there. So that's what makes this an Ithaca framework based on research, but what happens in our school districts based on our schedules, our school district.
So let me act like Lynn here. I'll assume and I'll multiply those 3 students and say I have, 10 of each. And then my next question is, okay, who am I teaching to, or how do I teach to all, I guess I don't want to teach to, the forming letters kids or the flower, on the right, like, is there stuff in here about that? Or
Yeah, so I would say it sounds like you want to differentiate so you can meet your students with what they need and not be too far above them or waste their time with what they know.
Right.
And so where I would say, let's look at, you said you do model writing, let's take a look, and on page 10, there are these other ways and instructional components that cover writing. There's shared and interactive writing, there's guided writing, there's independent writing, then there's also model guided independent wordwork and wordplay. And I would look through there with the teacher and ask that teacher to reflect on what are some other ways that you could maybe group students by need or do individualized instruction and some structures that could allow you to do that with a whole classroom of kids.
And one of the things we found that goes right over to that last column on page 10 is the instructional context, whole group, small group, whole group and small group, individual, and people say, well, how do I do that? How do I set that up? And so one of our common themes in our grade level release days is structuring your classroom, because we can give all sorts of great ideas, but if you don't have a classroom structure that allows you to do small group conferencing, they might go, that's a really great idea, and write it down and then go back to their classroom and say, when am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? So we are taking a step back saying what structures need to be in place in your classroom so that you can do these different components. Part of that comes in the scheduling, where we're saying, well, one way to do this is to have these times where you're having some small group instruction, and then you're doing a direct lesson or a mini lesson, and then you're doing a lesson with a small group and other kids are doing independent reading or independent writing, depending on that. So we're really going back with teachers saying, how do I set up a place where I can do all these components now that I know what they are and we have common language?
I didn't see anything about physical space. Did you? Is that in there somewhere? Or?
I think that is touched on under the
page 4.
Yeah, on page 4. The creating a supportive literacy environment. There's a second to the last paragraph, there's physical environment. And going back to what we were just talking about with structures in the classroom, that is one thing that's a common theme with our release days. That is so helpful to have all the 5th grade teachers together, because some people, it's not just us, or some people are experts on that already. Some people might have more expertise in 5th grade than we do. And so we can get those teachers together, and part of the days are people having choice for what do you need to work on. Do you need to work on looking at how you can structure your classroom? Do you need to work on lesson planning? What areas are you looking at?
Yeah, and one thing that strikes me as a teacher as I'm reading this and thinking about my class is, the physical environment. I see fluid and flexible. When I was looking at some of the instructional components, thinking about each day, thinking about how to move between instructional components fluidly and flexibly, that it's not a magic formula, but really each day considering, this is what I'm trying to teach to this student or this group of students or my whole class, and what's going to be the best way to get there. So having all these instructional components in place and then being able to mix them up day by day on what is called for really allows me to respond to the needs of my students and meet the curricular goals without locking myself into some complex kind of routine that might not be achieving those goals.
What you're describing, if it's fluid and done well, sounds a lot like what I've seen in some classrooms that I visited, where people were using something that had a specific name, Daily Cafe. Is this a way to spread that model throughout the district without calling it some trademark thing? Or?
So I will speak to that. So one, the Daily 5 is a structure for classroom, for literacy instruction in your classroom that brings in components of independent reading and whole class explicit lessons. Now, one reason that we as a group decided, the 25 people, that we don't want to just say we're all going to do the Daily 5 it's because we've actually been trying to grow that practice in the district for about 6 or 7 years. And what we as staff developers really found is that without the common understanding of those instructional components and what they actually meant instructionally, that many people would say, I'm doing the daily 5 without actually doing it, right? So I'm doing the daily 5, but the instruction didn't actually match the philosophical components of that. So we wanted to take off any sort of name and branding and really get down to what do we mean? What is that actually going to look like for teachers and students in the classroom so that we can all be on the same page?
And so the women that wrote the Daily 5 book and then wrote a book called Cafe, which was talking about strategy work, they were talking about the way they have created a balanced literacy environment. We very clearly made this our own and didn't just take off a name. We said, what are the experiences we feel children need to have? Some of those experiences I know I learned about when I read that book, you know, but I think a lot of people have experienced them whether they've read that book or not. And then I think we have gone deeper to speaking about creating a supportive literacy environment. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces from that, the work that those women have done, but I think we've expanded it and made it into a framework that is flexible, and that we could use that book as a resource.
What's up?
So the way you're describing this book is linked to sitting down with you using this book with a teacher. Is it also the case that this book has meaning or usefulness to a teacher independently of you, you know, kind of using it as that tool?
Well, that's one reason why the definitions are in there, so they don't need me to guide them. And you know, the meat of this is really about, you know, 12 pages, and then we also have the Common Core standards in the back. So it's a great place to reference, well, what is the state saying I need to teach? What are the structures that I need to go to? So it's fabulous for us to work with teachers one-on-one, in large groups and small groups. It's also a great place for principals to have conversations with teachers of, like, do we have common understanding of what I have seen in the room, or what would we call that I've seen in the room, or I would love to come in and see this, when might I see it? Or let's just have a discussion about classroom structures. So it's a great thing for that. And we've also spoken about in the future, if we move towards an instructional coaching design, this is a wonderful structure to have in place so that as we have people embedded in schools, this is a place to start conversation. So it's not just what a coach or a principal or a staff developer thinks you should be doing in the classroom. It's what a group of colleagues has worked on, you know, to define what we as a district say we want classrooms to look like.
And someone at the kindergarten day last week, she was a specialist. I can't remember if it was reading or special ed. And she said she works in multiple grade levels. And she said, oh, do you have extra copies so I can give them to some of the other PLCs that I work with? Which just shows, and we said, well, we have them for everyone when they come to the initial release day, but that just speaks to the fact that after this teacher's initial exposure, she wanted to bring this back home to her work to share with her colleagues, without us saying.
So reading teachers, special ed teachers, ESOL teachers, we have more common ground, and all those specialists are coming to the grade level release days, which is another way we're making this a living document. So each grade level has an opportunity to come out and do this work, and Matt spoke to that, to grapple with this, to grapple with lesson planning, to have the discussions across the district. They have the opportunity to come out 6 times this year, and we have up here, someone said this after a day, so let me read that.
And while we're reading that, you did mention Common Core, and that was my question, and certainly want to allude to it, that we transitioned our math program to a different model, a new model, because it more closely aligned with a Common Core. But that was Singapore math. That was, so that's, we adopted that program. So this strategy, does that more closely align us with the Common Core. This is really more homegrown with pieces pulled in, and we're not essentially bringing in what they do in the city-state and the Far East.
Yeah. Well, so the Common Core, you know, the main focus of the shifts in the Common Core that the state is really, or you know, that research has shown that students need is to spend a lot of time really reading a lot of text, thinking deeply about that text, having conversations, learning to pull evidence from text to talk about it and share their thinking. And so a literacy program that is embedded in authentic literacy experiences where students are reading and writing is aligned with the Common Core. So instead of selecting a basal program that has a lot of worksheets and so forth, we really want a program where kids are grappling with real text, either stuff they created themselves or text that's in their world, you know? So this is aligned with the Common Core and I think addresses those shifts that they get at. Another thing in the back is we've really tried to show, and I don't expect you, but we've showed how for each standard, how our ELF aligns to it. So, you know, for standard, whatever, writing standard 1 in first grade, these are the curricular components that get at this standard. So when you're teaching whatever purpose and text structure, you are teaching to this standard. So if you're aligned with the ELF, you're aligned with Common Core.
Right, and we don't, you know, we've always tried to, well, we're Ithaca, so we have our own standards, but we fully realize that there's Common Core out there. There is baselines that we have to develop now because of APPR, all the other things that are coming down, but our expectations are such that we expect all to learn, all to be literate, all to achieve at high levels. And that was the question before with the math was, okay, for those who want a broader, more deep experience or a broad experience, how do I advance within this program? And we showed how we could do that with math. We can do this with literacy as well, correct? I mean, as an elementary parent, when I asked the teacher, please challenge my child, you know, in the past we did hear that, well, we really couldn't this year at the end of the year. So probably as a parent, that's not what we want to hear. So, well, there should be a way, and we've obviously differentiation, but within a program that is to meet the Common Core, we're not so wedded to it that we can't obviously do what we do, which is teach at a high level.
And
you can speak to that. That's
right. Well, and I think one of the pieces in here that speaks to that, making sure we're reaching all students and challenging all students, is that structure. Talking about making structures where we don't have to say, well, we couldn't get to that. Well, what structures can you put in place to be sure that all the students are really being pushed forward? And so if you have your first grade Common Core standards here, and you have students that have met those standards, you also have the next year's standards here as well. And so how does that progress and how does that move forward? And how do you create authentic literacy experiences? Well, that may be in the page where it describes, let's see if I can get to that, you know, book groups, literature circles, and partner reading. Or, you know, how this describes how we can make those things happen in our classrooms. And what does independent reading mean? Does it just mean you read the grade level books? No, it doesn't. It means that there's a rich, and in the physical environment, it talks about space for a rich and varied classroom library. And that is, we have to have those books accessible to students so that they can read authentic literature, authentic texts at their level, and that we can move them forward, push them forward in an appropriate way, all students.
We'll go student first, then we'll...
So with the technology integration that's happening in a lot of elementary school classrooms, does this framework speak more towards a classroom which hasn't yet had the iPads added to it, and especially the section on, as you were just talking about, access to text classroom libraries? So have you found that still with the technology, those physical components are important to have, or?
Yeah, I think that students need to have a range of text experiences, and as we have more technology available, you know, having that physical space in the room for that is as important as having texts in the room, you know, paper texts, and that we're having multiple access to different media.
and this is a conversation that we're having kind of across the district around the definition of text, and that text is so much more, this is a printed text, but text is a video. Text is a song. Text could be a website or a game. That, really, text is much broader than printed, and we mean access to all types of text.
In a few school board meetings ago, we talked about Imagine Learning, which is a game-based learning pilot at one of the elementary schools, and so we're looking for ways to integrate that through the framework in as many classes as we're able to expand in as many classes as we can. But we want to do it in a thoughtful way, and we don't want to skip the hard work of doing this. Because this is really rolling up your sleeves and really understanding how kids learn to read and write and think about what they're doing in terms of literacy. And we don't want to skip that step, but we certainly want to incorporate technology as much as we can.
And I just want to add one thing, that just like with a book, a little kid can have a book and sit and do this, or this, which you see sometimes, or they can read it purposefully and engage with it. And the same thing with technology. You can sit and I actually just read an article in an education publication about the different ways that preschoolers were using technology. And you can sit and flip through and click and just have different things flashing at you. Or if it's a literacy-based program, you can actually make meaning from it. And so I think with anything within the context of this framework, it's with being purposeful and the meaning that you're making.
Roger.
Earlier there was the mention of baseline assessments, and so with lots of cooperation across the district, you've developed this elementary literacy framework and you've begun to roll it out, and I wondered how you would assess your baseline with your fellow teachers and what grade you might put them at. Here in the beginning, and what you think will be, and that's the first question, is where you're at, what kind of reaction you've had. You're partway through it in the grades, and then also what's going to be the biggest, what's the next step and the biggest challenge?
So assessing our baseline of rolling this out, it's been very positive. I think that that quote speaks to there is a lot of anxiety about leaving your classroom. This is what we do. We go in and we teach kids, and you're asking us not to be with kids. And we have had, at the end of the day, teachers saying, wow, the time that we were able to grapple with what's in here and have conversations with other teachers, I now have so much to bring back to my classroom. It was well worth it, and really, we didn't make that part of the quote up. They're saying we need more time for this. This was not enough time for us. And they're having 5 more days, their grade level is, but, I'd say my baseline assessment of this, just through this rollout through the grade level release days is fabulous. The feedback has been very strong. We've also gotten feedback that says this piece didn't really work for me today, and I'd rather have more of this way of learning things, and so we've gotten feedback of how to make it better. But I also feel like this isn't the first rollout. Along with Adam, we spent almost half a year, and Andrea was on the committee, so where we crafted it. So it's hard to say that there's a baseline, because that baseline was an interesting baseline where we grappled with what do we put on these pages. So that was yet another baseline of where people really started thinking about that.
And we do have an ongoing process where we have the teachers complete a survey at the end of each release day, where it's at least the initial survey was, what did you like about the day? And it could be anything from we liked the snacks to we liked the structure of the day to what would you change? And so we're not just hearing from a few people who are our friends and are telling us what we want to hear. We're hearing from everybody, or almost everybody, that fills out the survey. And we will continue that process, because the teacher's feedback is what's crucial. Yeah.
What was your second question? The next
challenge to this in the next step.
I can voice that just in terms of today, when I was there for the 5th grade session, Jane, who was is one of the math people, Jane Kessler, she said, "Now I can come do this in your classroom. You know, I can come show you." And then teacher immediately said, "She did it in my class last week, and it was amazing." And then you literally saw 10 other teachers say, "I want to get that. You know, I want to have her come to my class." And so I think a big challenge for us is they have 42 of these days, including pre-K, pre-K through 5. 42 of these days throughout the year, so that's 42 days they can't be in a teacher's classroom doing that sort of modeling, reflecting with a teacher. So it's a good challenge to have. I'd love to have the challenge of a lot of teachers wanting more of their time. So I'm happy with that challenge, but it is something that we're facing in terms of time.
And I think a challenge that goes along with that is empowering teachers to not feel like they need somebody to come in and model, but to feel safe in trying something different in their classroom and being able to talk about it with their PLC colleagues just in the building and feel safe that even if it doesn't work right or the desired result isn't achieved, that's okay, and that they can come back and think about together, so what made it not work and how can I try to shift that, and making it feel really safe for teachers to be risk takers, because that's what we're asking some teachers to do.
Eldred, then Brad.
Listening to you, I have a different thought about the answer to this question that I'm going to ask. On page 4, on the opportunities to share, 1, 2, 3rd, full paragraph down, you mentioned that some of the opportunities that are going to enhance the child's connection. Teacher, student, 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 small group, whole group. When I first read that, I thought, where are parents in this model? But now let me ask the question. Is there room? Is there a role parents can play? Or is that something for higher level teachers who have mastery over our room first?
The word that always strikes me is authentic. And so when we're asking students to do authentic work, I did a lot of this as a principal in my last building, so authentic work oftentimes meant an authentic audience, which meant a lot of times parents, uncles, neighbors, coming for the Reader's Theater, coming for a student-led conference. So to me, authentic isn't really authentic unless it has an audience at some point down the line. It could be the teacher, but I think a lot of times for a student, motivation increases if it is a family member or a friend or some sort of connection like that. So you all may have something you want to add to that, but authentic to me means bringing the community in and seeing what our children are doing in regards to literacy.
And we'll go to Brad, but certainly I think it's been proven over and over again the greatest predictor of childhood literacy is a parent reading to your child every day. But go ahead, Brad.
I got a question for Matt and then an editorial comment. And if you'd flip to the quote that was up there when I get, that'll be for the editorial comment. But Matt, my question is, all right, I don't want to wait until June to know whether you're doing well or not doing well. How real time are you able to assess, and what is your ability to pivot in the middle of this school year?
That's why I asked Lavelle to put the student writing up. That we talked about baseline data from the high school earlier today. So this year, writing samples is part of the assessments or the assessment data that we're collecting. Student writing is actually part of the teacher's APPR at the elementary level. So for English language arts, for K1, 2, and the first part of 3rd grade, how we're measuring teacher or student growth for APPR is through their student writing samples. So we collect that in the fall, we collect it in the middle of the year, and we collect it in June. So I think a big pivot point for us would be in the middle of the year when we see, the student that was here, when we really take a hard look at where that student is in January. And so, we can have all the nice quotes in the world and collect them all, but that doesn't mean a bit of difference to us if all of those students that were on that slide don't show some improvement on our rubric.
Matt, is that a teacher-principal conversation or PLC conversation?
It would be a PLC conversation. It could be a teacher-principal conversation.
Yeah, and, well, even before, so we're officially, the teachers are doing a mid-year writing assessment, but all the grade levels are coming back in December, and part of our days is student work study. So looking at student work and saying, how are the students doing? We've already done that in these first sessions, and they're going to come back in December, and they are going to bring back student artifacts of work, reading, writing, and integrated assessment or just project within the room. And so we're going to ask teachers to do that at a district-wide PLC and talk to each other. Is this working? We're setting up a holding environment for them where there's a lot of trust and respect and honesty, so that teachers can look at each other. And so if I look at Andrea's work and go, you know, wow, you know, you're teaching fourth grade and struggling to see what it is that you've been doing to move these kids here, and having those conversations as colleagues. So it is a principal-teacher conversation, but it's also a colleague-colleague conversation that we are working on throughout the year. So we're hoping, you know, by December that teachers are being pushed to be very reflective on their instruction, and then have those hard conversations with colleagues in a trusting way to say, well, this isn't working for me. How's it working for you? How did you get your kids to this?
My editorial comments based on the last sentence there, we need more time together. Isn't it great to live in a community where the teachers and the Board of Education and the community agreed and has increased that time? Just want to say that we actually heard that teacher before he or she said it. So I think it's nice. Sometimes it's nice to recognize that we live in that kind of a community.
Yes. And I'm not sure it was before it was said. I think it's been said for quite a while.
It's been said before.
That teachers need more time and need more time together. And the fact that all the fourth grade teachers can come together in the district and talk about their profession, their work, and children's work is great. But you know, as a community member, it's like, you didn't do that before? I thought you did that. Yeah. But there was never the ability to do that within the school structure. So that's been a very good change, I believe. And Chris, go ahead, and we're going to wrap up probably pretty soon.
Just to piggyback off of Brad's question, when we do, are we moving forward with the understanding that we may need to pivot, and that's a consistent understanding across the board? Okay, if we don't get the desired results, we're going to have to pivot, change gears, and try a different approach. Just so it's not, oh, a failure model, but oh, we just need to adjust the model. That's moving forward with that understanding.
Hey Rob, real quick, just following up on Jay's point that, and Liddy mentioned as well. You said something about if we go to this coaching model. Isn't that assumption kind of built into the path we're on as far as, you know, creating this document with the hopes that, I mean, I don't know what the ratio is, but I see 3 master teachers in front of me and Matt, and I don't know what the ratio of people, and I don't know what you are. But
I'm glad you didn't say 4. No offense.
But, you know,
the other guy.
Like, you know, to be effective and actually use this document so they're nice and wrinkled up and, you know, dog-eared and all, but, you know, how many touches can you get in a year, you know, with the 3 of you? I mean, has that calculation been done, or what's the right number? And
so what you're doing is leading up to the next group session, hopefully, or the one after that, when we bring to you our understanding and recommendations around instructional coaching, which will then lead into a conversation around budgeting and resource allocation in the group session after that. So this is all part of the process and the plan for us. And if I can add, too, it's important for us along our journey to excellence to celebrate small wins. What you're hearing about now and what you read about in the last work session about math is a small win for us that we need to celebrate and recognize. I think looking around the room at the number of years and teaching elementary language arts and teaching young people how to read, there's a lot of experience in this room, including myself. This is the first time we've ever been a part of something. I'm not even using the word common anymore. I'm saying comprehensive and common. A comprehensive approach to language arts and literacy instruction in all schools and classrooms hasn't happened in my career. And I'm looking around the table here, and when we researched this last spring and again this fall, we had to call a lot of folks, and we only found a handful who even had something that approached this. And even of the ones we found that were a document of some sort, they want the things that we would expect here in Ithaca. So a lot of work has been done to now. So ultimately, the excellence will be when we have a common mental model without a document to anchor it, well, we can just walk in the classroom and from classroom to classroom, and people can speak this language and show you how it works. But we're ways away from that. But just to have something that we can ground ourselves in now, and then with the addition of some instructional coaching, as we understand and develop that process, we're well on our way. But I'm looking at these folks and the folks who presented last time, they're superstars, and including you, Matt. So I just want to say to the folks, thank you for helping move some significant work forward in about a year, where some places are grappling with this for decades and haven't been able to do it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Brown. And really, on to any other business by the board members or the superintendent.
Yep. The IPEI campaign, they're having a sweet success on the 11th at the Wellness Center. They're bribing you with
ice cream.
Ice cream, so you should come. That's 5 o'clock. Having to do with their capital campaign, and then I think you probably have all seen this in the mail. Friends of the Ithaca Youth Bureau on the 18th, they're having a happy hour party, 5:30 to 7:30. For those of us who will be here for the meet and greet with the PTA Council, will be able to go from one to the other.
Oh, good.
So just to suggest it to you is something to add to your calendar for that evening.
Thanks for planning my evening.
I knew you'd appreciate it.
We like to go where there's snacks. Anything else? Upcoming board meetings, committee meetings are listed. Anything separate, different? Sean, go ahead.
Policy meeting on Thursday at 5 p.m.
And we're going to rediscuss.
We are going to rediscuss a meals policy, Judy. Yes, it will be on the agenda.
Well, I just thought that the
we
other
will try to find a way to get our hardworking employees some food in some way, somehow.
Yes. But I thought, the people that are most interested in food on the board
You should know that the meal policy is up for discussion.
I just want the food.
Just wanting results.
Finance is listed as to be determined. 4 o'clock on the 18th.
Yep.
Is that going to work?
Okay.
Give you.
4 o'clock on the 18th.
Yeah.
The 18th is a Thursday.
Prior to the meeting.
Prior to the meeting.
I've planned your whole afternoon.
Just keep stacking those meetings right up. That's great. So that's fine. Got it.
Yes.
Just remember that
Yes.
at 5 o'clock we have that meet and greet.
Yes,
Oh, no, exactly.
Just come right over.
We're rolling, and we'll just roll from one to the other. And I would have to say, there's never, ever, ever food at finance.
We'll want to get out of
You
here.
know how the suits are.
There is food for thought, though, Rob.
We have very, very good finance committee meetings. They're very interesting. Anything else? Chris, good? Judy, Max? Oh, okay. Well, as long as Judy's done, I think we're about done.
I move to adjourn.
Seconded by Chris. Without objection, all in favor, we're good.